revealing the handling of the strange digging incident in Gansu. File number 197-90601. File name Gansu Digging People Incident. Level of file, Class A. It is said that the most outrageous record in the 749 Bureau's archives. The villagers in a village in the northwest, because of a strange rain, all fell ill with strange diseases. Those infected by the strange rain will cause large areas of skin tissue to fall off. Their fingers and toes grew together. Their eyes protrude, and even go crazy and bite people everywhere, because the village was close to the nuclear bomb project experimental base. So in the end, this incident, it was attributed to the impact of nuclear radiation. But many years later, a witness of the incident appeared and told the unknown truth of that year, and even involved the Bureau of 749 that dealt with supernatural things. The narrator claimed to be the descendant of the construction corps in Gansu. It was one day in June 1979, over a remote village in the lowest plateau. A yellow cloud appeared in the sky. It seemed like a mushroom cloud formed after an explosion. It quickly covered the entire village. The narrator's grandfather was in his 30s and was walking on the street in the village. He suddenly saw a child shouting that there was a monster, and then ran home like crazy. When Grandpa was about to ask, the sky suddenly darkened. Looking at the strange sight in the sky, he felt an inexplicable panic in his heart. Without thinking, he hurried home. Many villagers were still standing on the street, discussing the strange cloud. Grandpa had just returned to the door. He heard the sheep and pigs in the yard were making a series of screams. He quickly opened the door and saw that the animals in the yard were crazy. Were constantly ramming their heads against the wall. 5 or 6 had already died. And this situation was not just his family, and other villagers' families were the same. Grandpa realized the situation was wrong, so he quickly ran to find the village party secretary. The village party secretary was standing at the gate and looked up at the sky with a serious expression. Grandpa ran over in a panic and explained the situation. The village party secretary went back with him. At this time, the yard was already full of villagers, discussing that someone must have offended the fairy and other feudal superstitions. There was one more dead pig in the pigsty than before, and the other pigs were also scarred, but they still kept hitting the wall. The family next door was even more bizarre. A big yellow dog suddenly went crazy and killed a pig. Maybe it tasted fresh. Finally, the big yellow dog rushed towards the onlookers. Fortunately, the village party secretary had an iron rod and directly killed the dog. He seemed to know something, telling everyone not to spread the word, and then hurried back to the village committee. Grandpa felt a little strange, so he followed the village party secretary back. The village party secretary asked him to close the door, and then dialed a phone number. Then it suddenly started to rain heavily outside. The raindrops were very strange, which were yellow, and the air was filled with a pungent smell. Grandpa looked out the window. He found the villagers outside were being rained on, began to scratch their skin frantically, and soon they were scratched all over. The village party secretary next to him was still on the phone. I could vaguely hear him calling the other person master, saying there was a special situation here, and he couldn't handle it alone, and needed support from the bureau. Seeing the situation outside getting worse, the villagers affected by the yellow rain began to attack each other. The scene was a bit like the Resident Evil in the movie. Grandpa was scared. When the strange rain stopped, it was already night. In just a few hours, the whole village was completely occupied. The village party secretary asked, Yai hides in the village waiting for the people above to come. Then the village party secretary took the survivors to a cave in the nearby mountains to hide, waiting for the arrival of rescue personnel. About 10 hours later, a helicopter appeared over the village. When the helicopter was still more than 10 meters above, a man jumped down directly from it. Grandpa hid in the dark and saw the man land steadily on the ground from afar. The man was a young man in a Chinese tunic suit and a black long knife on his back. The middle-aged man had silver hair and walked with wind, with a domineering look. He observed the situation around him and continued walking forward. He walked around the village, and many houses were open, and there were piles of animal carcasses in the yard. When he walked into the yard of the village committee, a cold wind blew by. There was no one in the yard. On the messy ground, there was a terrifying monster lying on the ground. A humanoid object without skin was lying on the ground. It had hands and feet. Its body and torso were very similar to humans, but its hands and feet were connected together. It looked a bit like a frog. It was just skinned. Suddenly a crowing of chickens came from outside. Then a girl's nursery rhyme came in. The young man quickly pulled out the black long knife behind him and instantly rushed towards the sound. I saw a little girl of 7 or 8 years old was pushing a rooster to the ground, tearing and biting the rooster's wings and neck with force, as if she felt something. The girl suddenly turned around and grinned with a strange smile. A red liquid flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Then she hugged the chicken in her hand and started biting it frantically again. Seeing this, a man holding a black long knife rushed up in one step. He grabbed the rooster with his left hand, grabbed the rooster, and hit the girl's abdomen with the handle of the knife. The girl was beaten to spit out a black mass, and then fell straight to the ground. The girl's condition. Grandpa has seen it countless times these days. The black thing she spat out was beyond your imagination. It turned out to be a kind of tadpole. The village party secretary told him that was a kind of cell mutation, biological weapon made by humans. The man with the long knife seemed to know him. He stretched out his foot and stepped on it hard, and then took out a lighter to set the girl on fire. Seeing the man's skills, Grandpa realized that he was the rescuer mentioned by the village chief. Just as he was about to go out to meet him, a woman's cursing came from a distance. It was the mother of the little girl, screaming, who was bullying her daughter, and rushed towards the man with a long knife. His eyes were wide open, as if they were about to pop out of his head. Strangely, as the woman ran, maybe because she was too hard, lines appeared on his face. The next scene was very exciting. The woman actually completed the peeling on the spot, revealing a layer of something like a frog. The man with the long knife rushed up directly. He raised his knife and quickly solved the opponent. After everything was done, the man with the long knife turned to the yard of the village committee and said, "Come out, Grandpa," and he knew that he had been discovered. Under the others' questioning, he detailed what had happened in the past 2 days. The man with the long knife went into the house to make a call, as if he was reporting to his superior. Then he asked Grandpa to lead the way to the cave. The cave was very large. Although it is located in a dry area, it was very humid inside. Suddenly Grandpa heard a sound of animal crawling. At the same time, the man with the long knife took out a bright flashlight, and then Grandpa saw a humanoid creature wearing an old-fashioned uniform was hanging strangely on the rock wall. The creature's limbs were attached to the top of the cave and suddenly pounced downwards. The man with the long knife swung his knife to kill the monster. Before Grandpa could breathe a sigh of relief, another rustling sound came from the cave, and there were many of them. The man with the long knife asked him to stay at the entrance and rushed into the darkness. Then there was a sound of fighting inside. Grandpa trembled and waited there, and was at a loss. A loud roar came from outside the cave, and the whole cave shook. Grandpa heard a dirty word, and then he saw the man with the long knife rush out, and ran towards the outside of the cave, and told Grandpa to find a place to hide. When Grandpa walked out of the cave, the man with the long knife was frowning and looking at the sky. It was the village party secretary they hadn't seen for 2 days. Grandpa looked up and saw a light spot like a plane, moving towards the northwest direction, and gradually disappeared. Later, the village party secretary told them the whole story. He and the man with a long knife were members of an organization. This organization has existed since ancient times, and changed its name many times through dynasties. Now it is called the 749 Bureau. The yellow cloud a few days ago carried a large number of microscopic biochemical variants. It penetrated into the human body with the rain, and multiply rapidly in the human body. This virus can control the human brain nerves. What is more terrifying is that it can also modify human cells, and finally turn people into frog-like monsters. Decades ago, the village party secretary worked in the special affairs. He was responsible for investigating the falling dragon incident in northern Liaoning. While looking up information on various creatures, he accidentally saw the photos brought back from Germany. Among them, we're from the German Special Agency. Cell-mutated creatures developed by the agency. One of them was very similar to the Frogman. To the Frogman in Huangyun village, it is said that during World War II, Hitler had sent 2 teams of people, secretly infiltrated northwest China to perform tasks. One of them was about the Earth's axis and alien species. The village party secretary's organization immediately sent experts to stop them. He was still young at that time. Finally, one of the enemies escaped with something, and was captured by the Northwest Army, and hid it in a cave in the Chilean mountains. When the organization found this cave, the Northwest Army guards had all died here, and the soldiers seemed to be infected with some virus. Their skin turned transparent, just like underwater creatures in the deep sea. Anyone who came into contact with them would be infected. After the organization decided to seal the virus in the cave, the village party secretary lost an arm in the battle, so he volunteered to stay here. In addition to continuing to perform reconnaissance tasks, he also visits the graves of his fallen colleagues every year. After the incident in the village, he realized there was a problem with the cave. When he arrived, the boulder at the stone entrance had been removed. The Northwest Army in the cave was still alive. After several days, he was exhausted. The flying object they just saw were special forces sent by the enemy and took away the things in the cave. After listening to the village party secretary's story, Chongdoman decided to go to the Northwest province to chase the flying object. The village party secretary asked him to take his grandpa out, and finally asked for a black grenade. Not long after they left, a violent explosion came from behind them. Later, the man with a long knife said, the village party secretary had a visible scar on his right leg, and something tied to his thigh. The purpose was to prevent the tadpole from entering the brain. The village party secretary chose to die with the cave. After the grandfather separated from the man with a long knife, he never saw him again. He didn't know if he caught up, whether he caught up with the flying object. He only knew that at dawn the next day, a company of people came to block the place, and even used planes to spray disinfectant to reduce panic. This incident, to the outside world, was only said to be caused by radiation-induced animal mutation. It is said that there is no quiet time, but someone is carrying the burden for you. Let's pay tribute to the heroes of China together.